have a quorum. We need one more. I guess they didn't understand what immediately following. We now have a quorum. We'll begin with resolutions. RS 2018-1390 sponsors Davis, Anthony Davis, Withers, authorizes the Metro Development and Housing Agency to enter into a pilot agreement and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 300 East Webster Street. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1391 sponsors Virture, authorizes the issuance, sale, and payment of general obligation improvement bonds in an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $775 million and provides for the levy of taxes for the payment of debt service on the bonds. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilman Cooper at large.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank Chris for being here. Talia and I were discussing this earlier. Oh, okay. So first up is not this bond offering, $775 million, but would you talk a little bit about the next bond offering of $650 million and when that is expected? Here she is. She and I had.
Well, how about Director of Finance?
Set of questions are coming.
Right back there. Hello.
So, if you didn't mind just talking to the council about not only this bond offering of $775 million, but the next bond offering of $650 million, and when that is contemplated happening.
Based on the information that we have provided the Metro Council, this information has previously been submitted. Based on the current authorized projects in capital spending plans that have occurred since 2009, we anticipate having to go back out in about 24 months for another a little over $600 million. And then in 2024, we would have to go out for the remaining balance.
So this $775 million is really refinancing, by and large, our commercial paper balance, which is currently $650 million?
Yes. Yeah.
Seven.
The total availability is about $700 million, but but we are through this bond issuance, we're taking out $665.
So we're refinancing this, and then the next bond offering is for money that we are anticipating spending for the next 24 months, the additional $650 million.
Exactly. Based on previously, again, I can't say enough, based on previously authorized capital spending plans.
So our backlog last May, when the treasurer did the report for us, was about $1.6 billion. What is it today?
I think it's about 1.5, the last I looked.
So it's still 1.5. So if we go through the 775 plus the 650, that is really just paying for our backlog, and that's not including any net new additional spending.
Exactly. It does not include anticipation of any new capital spending plans to be brought before this committee.
So in 2020, what will our GO bonded indebtedness number be after the $650 million offering?
Give me just a second. Tom's going to.
Okay, but it wouldn't be completely incorrect to take the 2.7 plus 775 plus 650, and we might
Exactly.
have a little bit of amortization of,
The only difference, I think, would be maybe interest cost and maybe issuance cost, but the principal would be the same.
okay. And with no net spending, so every amount of money allocated by this council and the capital spending plan, maybe this year or next year, would be in addition to this debt level.
Absolutely.
Okay. And the 100 million up in interest charges really are due to the 775 plus the 650. So the 775, which is at commercial paper right now, very low interest rate, you start paying a debt service constant on that of $45 to $50 million, and then the 650 would be an additional $40 million in debt
But
service.
that would be coming later because we would be running the 650 again through the commercial paper program. And there
Well,
would
until
be
you
some interest,
bonded
yeah.
it in 2020, at that point, the full $100 million upcharge in debt service would be to the city.
Yes.
Okay, very bracing news, have to say. Thank you both. And I'm sure there'll be other questions. And if you didn't mind
Do you want us to
circulating
follow up
the
with that other
projection of what the GO bonded indebtedness would be at the end of the
we'll get that to
650
you.
for the next one. Thank you.
And Director Lomax, you can send that so we can get it out to the entire committee. And I just want to stress also that this is for projects that's already been authorized. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have the finance background that Mr. Cooper has, so I'm starting from somewhat of a position of ignorance. When I look at the debt service funds listing in the budget book, it shows everything that we've issued starting back in 2009. It shows generally kind of a refunding bond issue and then improvement bond issue. It was around $100 million a year plus. And so I'm trying to understand, and Talia's explained it to me, and Talia, I apologize that it hadn't sunk in yet, so if you'll use simple words and try again. If we've been issuing those on a yearly basis, what projects were those covering? Were those covering projects that were authorized in 2005 or 10 years before? Or, and none of those are anywhere near as big as this one. So how did we jump from a $250 bond issue the last time we did it to $775?
I think, are you talking about the initial resolutions? Let me just speak to, I think you and I shared at least one email, and I'll just try to restate.
And you maybe went ahead of me, so.
And I'll just restate what I thought that email meant, and then what my response was. The council member had asked, she was looking at some debt schedules, why there would still be some expenses listed for authorized projects from 2009. And why those would be considered in this bond issuance. And what I tried to explain was that when we authorize capital projects are long-term projects, and simply that the expenses will occur over many years, and so that when you go in and you do a bond issuance, you are not necessarily going to take out and be issuing bonds for the complete capital spending plan for a particular authorized amount. Like in this plan, you may have some projects that were authorized in 2016, but that doesn't mean that we have spent everything that was authorized in the FY16 capital spending plan. Instead, you would see expenses over a multi-year period. Just think about some of the longer-term projects that we have had.
Right. Okay. So each of these years that I'm seeing, probably they all span a 10-year or something period.
They span many years, especially when you have projects that are in the capital spending plan for kind of what I'm going to characterize as omnibus projects, such as sidewalks. You just have a bucket of sidewalk money where you may be spending that over a 10 or 12-year period.
Right. Okay. So, and then the last piece of that question was, again, if I'm understanding this right, those bond issues looked like they were more on the order of 200 and something million. And I thought that those, so it's page J90.7 out of the budget book, if that helps anybody any. So I'm just trying to, again, understand how we're at a 775 million when they've generally been 250 million or smaller.
I think what you're looking at is we don't issue new money general obligation bonds every year.
Okay.
Some of the refunding bonds, depending on what we take out, makes up the size of those bonds. So if we're able to refund bonds for savings, it could be anywhere from 100 million to 300, 400 million.
Right.
But the way we issue our GO bonds is to refund commercial paper. And we typically have done that when we get to, well, the program jumped from 500 to 700 million a few years ago. So we would do that somewhere between 350 and 500 million, timing we don't time the bond market, but timing when we want to issue the bonds. So this one just, we grew it to 700 and taking it all out at one point, but it's no different than the smaller ones that we did earlier. And again, the program went from 500 to 700 million just a couple of years ago.
Gotcha. And so in the past, so I'm seeing, I mean, it's like every other one. There's an improvement bond and then a refunding bond and then an improvement bond every so often. So the improvement bonds are the paying off the capital.
The improvement bonds
Commercial
are
paper.
the new money to pay off the commercial paper. Refunding bonds are the opportunities to refinance outstanding bonds to get a lower interest rate on them.
Right. So I can't just add all those together because some of them replace some of the previous. That part makes sense. But so it sounds like we've never wiped out the entire commercial paper program when it was 500 million, for example, because I don't see an improvement bond issue here for 500 million.
That's correct. And this one, we're not, there's 700 million actually outstanding in commercial paper at this point. We're taking out 650 million. We always leave a portion of the commercial paper out to keep the program open and in the market. So when we do go back, it's not starting over new again.
Gotcha.
So we won't take out the whole program just for an operational standpoint.
Okay. And then one last question, Tal, you probably have answered this one too, and I hadn't caught up with you yet. So this will make our debt service payment relative to the total annual budget on the order now 14 or 15%. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that in an area that bond rating issues are comfortable with?
I think it will be. Immediately following passage of this, we will be having calls with the rating agencies. So we will, I'm sure that they will have a long discussion with us about some of those metrics.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the answers.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I think I heard the answer to one of my questions. We moved the commercial paper from 500 million to 700 million in the last couple of years. Is that right? I was thinking it was a little bit lower than that, but we moved to 700 million.
Yeah, that's been within the last couple of years.
Okay. All right. And so with this, and let me make sure I just understood what I think you just said. We're basically we're gonna charge all of this, move it over to GO bonds, and we're gonna replenish now basically where we will have 50 million out there in commercial paper. So we'll have about another $650 million that you guys can go out and do stuff with that we quote approved.
Right. It would just be, but it would still be projects prior that have received authorization from the
So how much
council.
space do we have left for us to go do new stuff?
When we go in, this body will at some time over the next few months get a capital spending plan recommendation from the mayor. Before that recommendation comes before you, we will have that conversation and we will conduct that analysis to bring forward a plan that the city can support with its finances.
Okay, well, I think your definition of what the city can support and mine would be two different things, to be very clear on that. That being said, I want to try to go back and look at one of the questions that was asked prior to the approval of the soccer and the other things is, what did the bond rating companies think was going to happen to us when we got into fourth quarter and we started issuing all of this additional bond, and we now take on, because now we are exceeding $4 billion in general obligation paper. And when you take all of that with revenue bonds, and then you take the health insurance, you take all of it combined, now we're climbing into the, not $9 billion, we're now getting into the $10 billion range. Unless my math is way off, I think we're pretty close. So at what point do we feel like that we've crossed that danger line? Because obviously it says here we got to start making payments in 2019. We all know the payments are going to go up every year thereafter for a bit of time. So I'm just really trying to figure out, how do we as a council reel this back in and say, you know what, I think we've probably spent enough right now. And I appreciate the fact that everybody says, oh, we're going to get down to the fundamentals and the basics now. Well, that might be because that's about all we can do. So what is going to be the capacity on the commercial paper when we finish?
Okay. I really think it's important. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and confirm what the $9 billion number might be, but the GO coverage is not $9 billion. Now, do we have...
It's the city as a whole.
Do we have debt outstanding for Metro Water Services? Yes, but that is backed through the revenues from the fees from Metro Water. Anything issued through the Sports Authority, we have a significant amount that have been issued through revenue bonds. So it's important to look at what revenue streams are being used to look at any individual debt issuance that's out there.
No,
so I don't want to have anybody having the impression that from the GO side of things that we have $9 billion of outstanding debt.
So
that's probably about 3 times.
Let me repeat what I said, because I thought I was rather clear. On GO bonds, we're going to be at about $4.2 billion when this happens, with interest and everything else payments. I believe I am pretty close, because this is one of the questions I asked when we were looking at the soccer stadium. I felt like we were probably heading towards $4.2 billion. So that's the GO. On the revenue bonds, yeah, we actually, I know what the differences are. But here's where I think we fail to understand the differences from perhaps administration versus some of us sitting out here. There's only so many dollars in Nashville, and the people of Nashville are the ones who are responsible for paying these obligations, no matter if they're revenue or if they're GO or whatever the case may be. We're the ones who are responsible for paying it. And if we go back and we look at GOs and we go back to roughly 2000, we had a little less than $1 billion we owed in general obligation bonds. We're going to be over 4 times that by the time, well, we certainly have the potential of being over 4 times that by the time we finish this year. So I think it's going to be critical that we understand what the bond rating is going to look like. I think it's also, and these are questions I really would like to have answers to, as opposed to, we'll get that for you, and we never get it. So what I'd like to understand is, what is our bond rating going to look like at the end of this year if, in fact, this is the number of where we are, and our capacity as far as our operational budget starts climbing on up there in the 11, 12, 13, 14% range of operational to pay our debt service, then what's that going to do to our bond ratings? And if it, in fact, lowers our bond ratings, do we have the potential of these payments being increased because we may have a fluctuating interest rate? I don't know the answer to that, but I would like to know that, especially as we walk into the remainder of the spending we may end up doing.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
In terms of the ratings, we will know what those ratings are when we get to the completion of this process, and when we get those ratings, we'll share that with the Metro Council. And something that I would like to share with the committee is that you may recall that last year we had a smaller capital spending plan than what we had for several years, and it's because we had gone in and we had looked at capacity issues, and we had approached which projects were going to be funded in a very thoughtful way, because we were considering all of those items when we decided what those recommendations should be. So if I can give you any level of assurance, I can tell you that all the things that you have just discussed just then will be discussed and will be considered. And when brought to this council, you can be assured that they have been fully vetted.
Well, I can assure you, my comfort level on the amount of debt the city has right now is not one of comfort. Thank you, Chair.
And
Thank you, Councilman Glover. Mr. Harmon, can you just make sure that you get all those questions noted of Councilman Glover?
I just would note that the debt service for these bonds that are currently issued will not change depending on whatever happens with the rating. These are set, so they will not change.
Thank you so much for that clarity. Councilman Cooper at large.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and super quickly appreciate this homework you all are willing to do for us. If I could just add to it a little bit, and if you would project the backlog from the currently appropriated but not bonded spending that you anticipate in 2020. So not only the outstanding debt, but what we're going to be paying the backlog down to, but then we'll still have that additional backlog because we will not have been able to accomplish that by 2020. I think then
We
that...
have an answer for you. Tom's already done the math on that. He said it's about $300 million.
I'm very good. Well, if you would circulate that to the council so that we know what, in effect, the liabilities are from operations up until any further appropriations, and then also include with that, if you didn't mind, the 5% fund balance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1392, sponsor Virture, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services to the Office of Family Safety for the Cherished Hearts Human Trafficking Intervention Court. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1393, sponsors Virtue and Roberts, approves an agreement between the United States Department of Justice, Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Metro Police Department to provide police assistance to the Middle Tennessee Drug Enforcement Task Force. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1394, sponsor Virture, authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the claim of Andrea Miller against Woodson Maddox in the amount of $50,000 and reasonable attorney fees not to exceed $80,000. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilwoman Gilmore.
Thank you, Chair Virtue. I wanted to know if, because I'm taking Councilmember Pulley's place today, so I don't have the questions like he does.
He's down in Miami.
I know, having
if he's watching.
having fun. If there was just someone here to maybe talk about this incident in a little bit more detail, and I saw where the officer had retired, but just what information they gathered during that process, that would be great.
The lectern is on.
Hi. Captain Gilder, Metro Police Department. So this is resulted from an incident. It was a traffic stop that occurred in August of 2011, so it's been a while. The officer stated that he observed the plaintiff running a stop sign, went to initiate a stop. She fled at a high rate of speed, initially and pulled into a driveway. Once he pulled in behind her, detected an odor of marijuana, and then asked her to step from the car. She reportedly refused. He removed her from the vehicle, which she resisted, and she was ultimately arrested that night for reckless driving and resisting arrest. Warrants were granted, went to General Sessions Court that had a preliminary hearing. It was bound over to the grand jury on a finding of probable cause. The DA's office added an additional charge for felony evading arrest, and the grand jury indicted on all three charges. Ultimately, it was set for trial. During pretrial review, there was discovered that the officer made an error with respect to the intersection where he said that the plaintiff ran the stop sign. And that, coupled with some other factors, led the ADA to decide not to seek prosecution, so the case was nullied. Ultimately, there was a motion filed to dismiss the case, and that was granted. So then suit was filed. There was a motion for summary judgment, which was the officer won That decision was appealed to the Sixth Circuit, and then on a matter of law, it was ended up being reversed and sent back. So that's kind of how we are where we are today. And like you noted in the interim, the officer left the department in 2015.
Also, I wanted to know, usually when that happens, I saw it said where she didn't file a complaint. Are they made aware that they can file a complaint when that happens?
Well, we pretty extensively advertised the complaint process. I mean, online, all the precincts have complaint cards. OPA does outreach. So, you know, we do what we can do as far as letting people know about their ability to file a complaint. But yeah, as you noted, one was not filed in this particular case.
And then do y'all keep demographic data for incidents like this, so you can find out like what area this is occurring in, gender, race, that type of thing?
Well, we do data stop traffic forms. So for every traffic stop that occurs, we collect data on the gender and race and location of the stop, the reason for the stop, and that sort of thing. Yes.
Okay, but it's more like individual. It's not like collective as it relates to maybe cases, or if somebody would just kind of take it and analyze it. It's just each one.
Well, we collect them on each stop. I mean, then we do analysis from time to time using that data that we collect. That's correct.
So how often do you do the analysis?
It just depends. We use it. We've had other entities ask for that data and use that data for studies. It's available for internal or external use.
Okay, so maybe I can get some follow-up and just on how often y'all do the analysis?
Mm-hmm.
And when's the last one you've done, and if I could see that one?
On all traffic stops?
Mm-hmm. Like you said, a total analysis, more in depth, where the information is organized, I guess.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Vercher. You mentioned this happened in 2011, and I'm not sure when we implemented dash cameras or if we had them on all cars at all times, but you said that when this went to pretrial, that the determination based on the misstated cross street, that was a reason to settle, but you also said there were other factors. Was there a dash camera recording of this arrest?
The officer's car was not equipped with a camera.
Okay. And can you just speak to dash cameras, kind of the timeline on that, based on kind of 2011? At that time, did some officers have them and some did not, or?
The only cars that were equipped with dash cameras at that time should have been the DUI cars, the traffic enforcement DUI cars, and aggressive driving unit vehicles.
Okay, so one specific to that unit, but if someone were to see a traffic at that time, a traffic problem, they wouldn't have necessarily had a dash camera.
Just your standard patrol officers did not have dash cameras at that time, that's correct.
And do all patrol cars have dash cameras now?
Not yet, that is part of the package that's being reviewed with body-worn cameras.
Okay, and what percentage of cars have dash cameras at this time?
Right now, it's the same. It's the DUI units and aggressive driving units that have cameras.
So it's still the same as it was in 2011?
Yes.
And do you think a dash camera would have been helpful to both the city and the defendant in this scenario? Because there would have been footage to kind of back up both testimonies?
You know, that's a question for probably the attorney's handling the case, but it would just depend on what was actually captured on the camera. I mean, a lot of times with dash cameras, you have, depends on the way the vehicle's positioned, if anything's picked up, how far away the officer is from the car, if there's any audio, so it may or may not have assisted, I don't know.
Okay, I appreciate that. Director Cooper, do you think dash camera footage would have been helpful to both the city and
I think it depends on what the dash camera footage showed. I mean, if it showed the cross street, or, I mean,
Do dash cameras show cross streets? Shouldn't they?
Well, it depends on how the vehicle is positioned as to what the dash camera shows. So, I mean, it could have
But
been.
we'll make sure that when we have dash cameras, they would show cross streets, right? Wouldn't that be important? The view shed, like the field of vision of the camera would show things like that?
I'm not an expert in dash cameras, but I would think that the broadest field of vision possible would be best.
Okay, but I hope we're going to become experts in that, right? Because we're wanting to have good footage, Director Cooper, that's helpful to the city and to our citizens.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Henderson. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kept in the analysis, it said that the officer resigned. Was that a result of this incident?
Not that I'm aware of. He resigned in 2015, even before he won his summary judgment in 2016. So to my knowledge, it was not related.
And he won the judgment. I mean, Metro
won summary judgment in 2016.
So there was no other, why is the reasoning for, I guess I should ask Mr. Cooper, the settlement?
Well, the summary judgment that was awarded was appealed to the Sixth Circuit, and it's my understanding that was reversed. And then, so it's actually been to the Court of Appeals twice, and now we're at the time of settling or going to trial. And it's essentially, at this point, a he said, she said. The plaintiff would make a very good witness, would be a very sympathetic witness, and so we think that certainly from a business standpoint, this is the best approach for the city.
And did I not see in the summary, I may be mistaken, that there was some liability as far as the officer goes?
Yes, the officer would be personally liable, correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Pridemore. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1395, sponsor Glover, appropriates $360,000 from the General Fund Reserve Fund for the purchase of equipment for the Nashville Fire Department. Councilman Glover.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Jameson, I've been talking with the fire department, and they had a request that went in for this very similar thing. And so I want to find out what's the best way. I'm going to defer this. I read the analysis on the Rule 16. I want to talk about that at some point in the future because it makes it almost impossible for this body to do our job. But that being said, what's the best way for me to defer this? Because I asked the Finance Department earlier today when this 4% request would be coming. I want to make sure this is a part of it because, this, in my opinion, in the observations I've done, is critical equipment for them. So are we better off to do and I guess I'll ask it this way, an indefinite deferral? And if I don't see it coming back on the 4%, then I can reenact the bill, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then, Chair, I'm going to move to indefinitely defer.
Chief, are you seeking do you want to be recognized? Councilman has moved for an indefinite deferral. And while you're coming up, just for the viewing audience, I'm going to go to Mr. Harmon. Just can you briefly explain to the viewers and for committee members the process as it relates to 4% requests for departments?
Yes, Chair Vercher, thank you. The 4% reserve fund is a pool of monies derived by a fund transfer from the general fund revenue of the General Services District. That's provided for in the charter to provide funds for the purchase of equipment and or the repair of buildings for those departments deriving part of their operating budgets from the GSD General Fund. The mayor typically makes a recommendation to the Metro Council as to the appropriation of 4% reserve funds, again, for the purchase of equipment or repairs to buildings or facilities. The Finance Department monitors the reserve fund throughout the fiscal year as it progresses to ensure that we have enough revenue within that fund to support the funding of a portion of those 4% requests from the departments. As Councilmember Glover stated, we are in the process of carrying out that evaluation, and we expect to bring a 4% resolution to the council sometime in October. I should say the equipment and or building repairs that would be funded out of this 4% fund, those are intended to be of lesser cost and shorter lifespan than those items or projects that you would typically see in the annual capital improvements budget. In addition, administrative policy requires a minimum of $500,000 balance be maintained in the fund at all times, and the council added an additional requirement of $500,000, making the minimum balance in the 4% fund $1 million.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Yes, Chief Will Swan of Nashville Fire Department. I just wanted to be known, we have made our request known through the 4% request to finance, and we would like to go through the same process that all the other metro departments go through.
Thank you so much. Councilman Glover.
Just let me close with this, if I may. We did not offer the cost of living adjustments this year. You know, I went out and spent an evening with one of the companies out there. I've spent time in some of the fire halls around the city. This is something that is really, I don't have a full working knowledge of it because it's not what I do, but this is protective gear that apparently is essential for them to protect themselves and to do their job. And so I really hope we're going to put it in there, because if we can't pay them, let's at least make sure and we can pay them, we just don't have our priorities right. If we're not going to do that, then let's make sure we give them the equipment they need. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. But I think we've already heard from the chief that he's put in the request as it relates for his 4% request for his respective department. Okay, it's the motion to indefinitely defer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is indefinitely deferred. RS 2018-1396, sponsor Vircher and Withers, approves the benefit board's waiver of repayment of pension benefit overpayments for pensioners. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1397, sponsors Vircher and Withers, approves an interlocal agreement between the Metro Department, Nashville Electric Service, and the Williamson County Joint Communications Network Authority for the interfacing of radio communication systems. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1398, sponsors Vircher and Withers, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to provide transitional assistance funding from statewide funds to continue services through the American Job Center during the Workforce System Alliance. Is there a motion? Realignment. It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got like 3 or 4 of these in a row, and if I could just have somebody come up and kind of explain what the different parts and pieces are, I'd appreciate it.
And if there is no objection, we can take them all at once.
That'd be great.
Patrick Holmes, Executive Director, Nashville Career Advancement Center. All of these funds relate to the state's realignment of the workforce area. So these are transitional funds that the state put out to help pay for activities through this transition period, managing the transition, holding meetings, and making sure that services are not broken for any of our customers. And the reason there's 4 is that they're for 4 different funding streams: adults, dislocated workers, youth, and administrative. And so that is that's why there's 4 bills kind of all right after one after another.
Thank you. And the realignment is, what are we realigning? Sorry.
We are realigning, the state used to have 13 local workforce areas, kind of dividing the state up into 13. They realigned from 13 down to 9 to match the state's ECD areas.
Did that answer all your questions, Councilwoman? If there's no objections, we can take RS 2018-1398, 1399, 1400, and 1401. If there's no objection, we can take them all together, and I'll read the captions. Thank you, Councilman Glover. RS 2018-1399 sponsors Vircher and Withers, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to provide transitional assistance funding from statewide funds for administration costs during the workforce service alignment. RS 2018-1400 sponsors Vircher and Withers, approves Amendment 2 to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish career services for eligible adults, youth, and dislocated workers. RS 2018-1401 sponsors Vircher and Withers, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish programs to prepare adult service recipients for employment. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor on those resolutions? Opposed? Resolution passes. You get those, Mo? Okay. RS 2018-1402, sponsors Vircher, Gilmore, and Roberts, approves a grant contract between the Metro Board of Health and the Mental Health Cooperative to provide a secure drop-off location for persons needing a mental health urgent care alternative to an emergency room or correctional facility. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1403, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, approves a grant contract between the Metro Board of Health and the Best Friends Animal Society to achieve safe placement of all healthy and treatable dogs and cats located in safe coalition member kennels in Davidson County. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1404, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, accepts a grant from the Best Friends Animal Society to the Metro Board of Health to provide a pay-it-forward, fee-waived animal adoption event. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1405, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Health and the Metro Board of Health to provide child fatality review services in the sudden death of young and children under age 19 investigated by the Medical Examiner's Office. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1406, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, approves a contract between Infield Management and the Metro Board of Health to operate a mobile unit to provide services to women, infants, and children. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. RS 2018-1407, sponsors Vircher and Gilmore, approves a grant to the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to promote the proper use of all recommended vaccines and respond to the vaccine preventable disease in collaboration with the CDC. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. I had a moment there, I'm sorry. RS 2018-1404, sponsors Vircher, approves a letter from the Metro Mayor to the Deputy Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Transportation outlining the Metro government's compliance efforts with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. If I read the letter right, there's a statement in there that says we will begin an evaluation of sidewalks to make sure that they're ADA compliant, except that we've been through this process once. So I just want to make sure, I mean, the perception I get from my constituents sometimes is we fix the sidewalk and then we come back and fix it again and then we fix it again and it's kind of the same place. Is there a way to, I mean, I just want to make sure we're not going through and doing that again because there's so many new sidewalks we need to be building. So can someone kind of tell me what we're beginning to evaluate again and if there's a way to satisfy this by making sure everything forward applies to the new standards?
Councilwoman, we'll bring up Director Sturdivant.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good evening. We have had an ongoing ADA compliance program since 2003, and it really it has two main parts. We build all new sidewalks to meet ADA, and then we go back and try to repair and fix all the ones that don't. And so it's a constant process. It might in some ways be misstated, like you say, but we've had that ongoing for years.
So just to clarify, I mean, I guess in particular, maybe like the new yellow things are new, and so 5 years ago we fixed an intersection to have the swale that we needed, which is great, and strollers and bicycles. I mean, it's not only helped the ADA community, it's been beneficial for everyone. So I think we're all supportive of that. Right. But then we come back the next year and do what the next standard is, and yeah, to me, it's to the detriment of not building the new sidewalk that we need so that someone can ride on a different street.
Okay. From time to time, the standards do change. We also have sidewalks that just are in need of repair or have become out of compliance, and then we have thousands of encumbrances in our sidewalks. and we're trying to systematically go about fixing those. I'm not sure that answered your question, but.
So, that's good.
I mean, we
appreciate
try, council member, we strive to build them correctly the first time, but oftentimes the standards change and the conditions change.
And will
Because
this
there's
address,
so much development.
will this address poles in the sidewalk by any chance?
Those are considered encumbrances. Our standards exceed the federal ADA. The federal ADA only requires 36 inches. And so a lot of those poles are placed in the sidewalk, and they provide 36 inches, but they're still in our sidewalk. So we actually have a difference of opinion with some of our local utilities on that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I mean, it's great to get them all working so you can get around them or down or whatever. So I applaud that, but I would hope that we can continue to move forward with creating more opportunities for people to get places. So I support this. I just want to understand it better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Henderson.
Thank you, Chair Vercher. Director Sturtevant, my questions are kind of in a similar vein as Councillady Allen's. But I did want to understand that when we do use repair dollars or improvement dollars, I was thinking recently of Weston Avenue or Harding Road, and so I don't know if we get kind of, when we talk about TDOT and, you know, state standards and local standards, you know, West End was significantly improved as far as the quality of the sidewalk, but all these encumbrances remained, and sidewalks were not widened in any way to, and, you know, I haven't gone out there with a measure tape and measured 36 inches, but, you know, I know people that walk that stretch. I see people walk that stretch. I drive past it often. And so I just kind of want to understand from a prioritization standpoint, if, you know, why, I guess I'm wondering, are we making improvements to sidewalks that are still encumbered when we do have other sidewalks in areas that I know not to be ADA compliant, that don't have encumbrances, that we haven't improved? So how we kind of set the, you know, I understand our prioritization system for our new sidewalks, but I guess I'm not as clear from a prioritization standpoint on our existing sidewalks.
Okay, well, that's, there's a lot of information that goes into it. One of the things that we have to do is that if we are aware and we're on notice that one of our sidewalks is in non-compliance, we're obligated to go out and fix it. So if we're put on notice, then we have to respond to that. We also systematically are surveying the whole county, and we also rely on the eyes on the street and the police department and the water department and all the departments that within Metro government to help us spot those locations that need to be fixed. So that's an ongoing and broad program. We're also aware that there are a lot of encumbrances in our sidewalks. And again, we have a difference of how we approach that than, say, NES. NES has a right to be in the right-of-way, and in their opinion, they have to provide 36 inches of ADA clearance, which is the federal law. Our standards and sidewalks are usually wider than that. And so, you know, without being too hard on them, we have a difference of opinion there. It's a struggle that we constantly work on it, and they work with us, but we often come to a difference on that. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I would just like to understand still, you know, I know for a very long time, because we had the consent decree, the city was really out of whack, frankly. I mean, I certainly appreciate the ADA concerns, but, you know, 70% repair, 30% new. Right. I think we're approaching now more of a 50-50, 60-40, but I guess, you know, maybe this is something we can take up, Chair Vercher, rather than here in the Public Works Committee. But I'm just, you know, from a cost standpoint, when we look at, you know, where we're putting our money for sidewalks, I concur with Councillady Allen that, you know, making existing sidewalks more accessible and more usable, you know, I think sometimes that's a great use of funds. But if we don't, you know, do it in such a way that we still are going to have to come back, Councillady Allen, and do it again. So I guess I'm just hoping to get just a little more understanding of this program going forward. But in the meantime,
I'll try to have more information for the Public Works Committee tomorrow.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. Thank you, Director Sturdivant. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Resolution passes. We're now on bills on second reading. We have BL 2018-1283, sponsors Murphy and Henderson, amends the Metro Code to restrict the use of proceeds from the sale of real property owned by Metro. I do have a letter from the sponsor. Council Lady Henderson, do you know if didn't she have an amendment? Do you want to move the amendment? Okay. There is a meeting for there's a letter for a one-meeting deferral. Got a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Bill is deferred for one meeting. BL 2018-1314, sponsors Cooper and Vercher, establishes a Blue Ribbon Commission consistent with the annual operating budget for fiscal year 2019 to identify government inefficiencies. Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate everybody's work and ongoing work with this. I just want to recognize and thank and congratulate the administration on the nomination of 5 nominees who will be confirmed tomorrow night for the Blue Ribbon Commission. And in an effort to provide a structure for them to work in a collaborative process between the council and the administration, I was going to defer this bill one meeting and solicit further input, as the administration has said, how to make it even better, and from the council also. So with that, I request a one-meeting deferral. Also, I will note that the vice mayor plays a large role in the structuring of this committee, and we will have a new one at 6:30 tonight. And so I'd like to get our vice mayor involved also. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cooper. There's a motion for a one-meeting deferral. It's been moved and seconded. Councilwoman Gilmore, discussion on the one-meeting deferral. Councilwoman Gilmore, discussion on the one-meeting deferral.
I apologize. I was talking also council business because it's just a lot going on right now. Yeah, I did have, I guess I wanted to share with Council Member Cooper that I thought was a great idea. I did have some, I guess, things I just wanted to bring up and just kind of go on record. Just the piece I'm not clear about, even after reading the analysis, and I remember when you brought it up this summer at the budget, is are these recommendations, I'm not clear about how much weight they hold, and with us having the consultant, if you could just speak to that, that's the part I'm still not clear about.
Councilman Cooper.
Thank you, Council Lady. You're observant as always. As we're evolving this collaborative process, I think the current vision, and I want to encourage every council person to contact myself or the vice mayor or the budget and finance chair, is for really suggestions to come from a wide variety of sources, and then for these suggestions to be vetted by this commission process. So that would include people from finance, from people from legal, so that hopefully at the end of this process, the council will be presented with well thought through potential ideas. Now there may be no ideas that survive the scrutiny, but then there may be ideas that are valuable to the public in creating a more efficient and responsive government. And this is to avoid, as we talked about last June, the June problem. We get to June, we would like some spending choices, some saving choices, and we haven't done the homework to know if they're real or not real. So this is starting that work early, since next year is clearly going to be a challenging year also, to start the work early and to have a very professional process behind it. And again, I just want to thank the administration for the outstanding nominees that they have put forward in doing this. And then again, I think we have to decide ourselves in the next 2 weeks how we want to receive that news.
I have a follow-up. So then for this, then I'm thinking, I like the idea, I like the way that it's going. Perhaps then the council could rank some of the issues, since the budget is a moral document. that are important to them, because I feel like some of the issues that they would look at, if they only looked at it from a fiscal standpoint, that it may be something that's important, but we know that just fiscally, it may not have the return that we think it would if we only looked at it fiscally. But if we looked at it morally and fiscally and the overall good for the community, we may have a different take on it if we ranked and presented it.
Well, absolutely. It's up to the council and the mayor to pass the budget.
Right.
And that is a moral document. I completely agree with your observation. This is just providing choices, discrete building blocks for what may allow some savings that possibly could go, for example, to employee pay. But again, instead of getting to June and all of a sudden needing that we need to do that homework, then to start early, and I'm very excited about employees themselves potentially being a source of these ideas, council members, people from the business community, to starting early, because again, I think we'll be happy next spring that this process happened. But this commission does not pass anything under the substitute that was written. It would conceivably do a recommended neutral or not recommended screening, but all of those items would end up before the council, and only the council and the mayor can pass the budget.
So I guess I'm asking in that, can there be some things too that we say we just will not touch or look at,
Yeah.
and there are other things that we will? I guess
Yeah,
that's-
excellent. And this is, I think, something, if you don't mind, actively discussing and putting out in the next couple of weeks. Currently, employee benefits and compensation is excluded from the formal set of topics, in part because this whole exercise is to find money, ideally, for employees. Also, the sale of public land. In part, we have a separate process going with that, and it's very easy to say, well, we'll just sell some land to do it. That probably needs to, let's not resort to that. And then actively, I think one of the reasons this is being deferred is perhaps schools should be excluded.
Right.
From that. And so the exclusion, we can't exclude everything because we do need to find money. But again, to help the committee be focused, I think, is a great thing. And again, this is new turf for us. This is a collaboration between everybody. But again, all of us, you've been here longer than I have, Council Lady, but you do get to the budget process, and then there's just not enough time. It wasn't staffed. Is it legal? Can you do that? What would it save? Does it have an unintended consequence somewhere else? And so ultimately, this is relying on the professionalism of the mayor's appointees and the council to begin working with finance and law and the mayor's office itself to decide whether there are viable ideas to be presented to the council and the mayor's office when you get to it next year.
I like it. I like it a lot. I like the idea of schools, pensions, land, and I would probably just add Nashville Metro General Hospital.
Excellent also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As related to Councilor Gilmore's question, in the presentation of the Blue Ribbon Committee that we had the other day, they had some fabulous ideas, and it was a great presentation. But during that presentation, please refresh my memory, did they have any recommendations as far as exempting, or did they just go after, not go after, but review everything and show where the money was leaking from, or where there could be some advantages as to restructuring?
They reviewed a holistic approach. They didn't include exemptions. They reviewed everything.
So I just want to be careful. I know we're not even there yet. I just want the council to be careful. It's a great idea, and it sounds like it'll work well, but if we start putting a lot of restrictions on it, then we've defeated the purpose. So I just want to make that statement. Thank you.
Definitely noted, Councilman. Councilwoman Henderson.
I wanted to concur with Councilman Pridemore. I don't think we should be putting exclusions on this. I think it should be just an open, objective, fair process. I concur a budget is a moral document, but that is on us when we go to pass the budget to set those priorities and exclude things or include things at that time. But we want this, group of citizens and others to just approach this objectively and all across the board, in my view. So I support the process, but I would just encourage us not to be setting up exclusions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Henderson. Seeing no further discussion, this bill has been, there's a motion on the floor for a one-meeting deferral. All in favor? Opposed? Bill is deferred for one meeting. BL 2018-1319, sponsors Mendez and Vercher, amends the Metro Code regarding tax increment financing. Is there a motion? Councilman Mendez.
Thank you.
At large.
I need to move an amendment on 1319, but first I want to just provide a little context. So this one and the next one, 1320, both go to talking about tax increment financing, and they're different in that 1320 would amend a specific existing redevelopment plan, the Rutledge Hill redevelopment plan, and under the terms of that plan, any amendment would require MDHA's approval also. So when we get to 1320, I'm going to be moving to defer and to refer it to MDHA so they can consider the amendment. However, on 1319, we don't need MDHA's approval. 1319 is similar to the TIF reform that we did in 2016. In 2016, we agreed, among other things, to have an increased reporting requirement, and we decided for new tax increment financing loans going forward, we were going to set aside for Metro to keep the, quote, debt services taxes. So after we passed that in 2016 for new TIF loans, it would be 85 cents out of every dollar of increment would be available for the new loans. And we decided that it was important that we keep the debt services piece, the 15%. This bill, 1319, would expand on that principle and have Metro also keep the schools fund portion of the taxes, which is approximately 31 cents of every dollar of increment. The reason behind doing this, well, it dovetails with the long conversation we had about Metro's debt. We're about to go over $4.5 million of general obligation debt, and in the handout I put around for everybody on debt per capita of the 50 largest cities in America, we're now number 2, sandwiched between New York City and Chicago. We truly have made Nashville an international city. We've done it on the backs of long-term debt. That doesn't have to be good or bad, but it is true. The fundamental question is whether we're going to continue to pour as much gasoline on the development fire as we have been, or whether we need to feather that back so we can pay for that extremely high per capita debt that has us number 2 after New York and before Chicago. I would argue that, especially now at this point where the school system has a line item in their budget that's about to go over $10 million per year of money that they pay to fund tax increment financing, that it's time to take the schools fund portion out, and that's what 1319 would do. A couple other piece of information. Because TIF has to do with economic development, 1319 is amendable on third reading. So after I get, hopefully, this amendment introduced and approved, I'm going to be moving for approval on second reading with a re-referral to Budget and Finance. And with that, Madam Chair, I would move the amendment that's in the package. It's a housekeeping item to fix a typo I made in the first draft.
Councilwoman Allen, do you want us to? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment. There's a motion to move the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Now we're on the bill as amended. Councilman Mendez.
So I would move the bill as amended with a re-referral to Budget and Finance.
It's been moved and properly seconded with the re-referral back to Budget and Finance. Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Councilmember Mendez for the close watch he keeps on this and the great explanation, because this is the most clear way I've had the school payment explained, so I appreciate that. So a couple of questions. First of all, on third reading, we're looking at BL 2018-1315, which sets up a study and formulating committee to look at how TIF is done and to give us an evaluation, would it be appropriate to wait to get the results of that committee's recommendations before we continue to do other changes to TIF as it is now?
Councilman Mendez.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think the answer is no. I think that this little debt dashboard that I passed around, we're way below where we want to be on our savings account. We're second highest of the 50 biggest cities in America on our debt per capita. We're over, once we get the updated numbers for 2018, going to be over $3 billion in unfunded retiree benefits. Our debt service as a percentage of operating budget has I think skyrocketed is a fair enough word, up about 5%, or I guess up 5 percentage points, and that comes out to about a 50% increase over the last 5 years. Just completely setting aside the revenue bond debt, we're over $4 billion on our GO debt, and we continue to talk about transit-oriented development as the way of the future. And if we explode the number of transit-oriented development districts in Nashville, we simply cannot give all the money for the increment to development loans. We need to leave some for Metro. We already decided a few years ago to leave the debt services taxes. I'd make the argument that schools are at least as important as the debt services taxes. We need to leave this meat on the bone. Where we are today is not where we were 35 years ago when TIF started. The city is an international city. We borrowed our way into being an international city, and it's time that we keep the schools fully funded. I'm sure there's going to be other good ideas that come out of the study and formulating group, but there's no reason to delay for this. I would note that we can talk about it some more for third reading if we want to keep talking about it, but for second reading, since it is amendable on third, I'd say that we should go ahead and pass it on second.
Councilwoman Allen.
I still got more questions. This is so complex. Okay, so 2 more questions. Maybe someone from MDHA can explain how they repay the loans, and if we take 46% of the increment, do they still have to pay it back, and how does that work?
I think they're deciding on who's going to.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Councilman Mendez. They're coming up, though.
The answer is pretty clear. It will reduce the amount of loans that can be made. So whereas a project might qualify for a $10 million TIF loan now, there will be less money available for the loan payments. So the loan amount instead of 10 might be $6 million. There's no question about that. The question is whether, as a city, as a value judgment, whether we need to keep financing projects to the same extent that we have over the last 35 years.
Thank you. Joe Kane with MDHA. Councilman Mendez, I think, did a good job of answering that. We spoke with him last week about the consequences of reducing the amount of increment. We do feel strongly that there should be a look at tax increment financing in order to be more transparent and be able to recognize with the public and get a good understanding of what tax increment is about. That bill on third reading that you mentioned, we're fully in support of that. It has a clock ticking on it on that bill to get a report back to Metro Council within 6 months. We would like to wait for 6 months before any more decisions are made upon that so that we can look at just those things Councilman Mendez said. How much gas do we want to put on this? How much gas do we want to take off of this? And that's a great endeavor that I think the study group will do of 7 people that he is recommending, and that after we look at that, then we can decide. Because if we take this off of this table for the next 6 months, and there are no tax increment, we have a tax increment financing application process. There are no tax increment financing applications in the works right now. We have none that have been submitted to us or know of any that are coming into us. And we think doing this 6-month wait and a review at that point in time, we may go in and open up and amend multiple things about redevelopment districts and about how tax increment financing work, and we request that you would defer on this bill until that 6-month study is done.
Councilwoman Allen.
Okay, I'm getting clear. And then the final question is, why in the world do we do it in this goofy way? I mean, why do we put this money into these funds and then take it back out again? Why don't we have are we required by law not to just have a TIF fund where all the TIF money goes and MDA doesn't have to get it back from, and that may be ultimately the same thing as what we're doing now, but can someone on the legal table explain that piece to me?
Director Cooper?
Those are questions that I asked Friday. Actually, Margaret Darby and I met with finance to kind of talk through the mechanics of how things are done and why they're done. And I think a lot of it is that's the way we've always done it.
That's a great answer.
And so we are looking at how that's done from a mechanic standpoint.
So we have options in changing the mechanics, potentially.
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay, that's helpful. Okay, I mean, to me, I'd appreciate everything Councilmember Mendez is doing because he's clearly got a great understanding of this, but it does seem like we may be able to learn something from study and formulating. So I would just ask for consideration, maybe this reading or the next, to think about waiting to get that information.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Allen. Councilman Mendez.
Just on that last little exchange, I want to be clear on the language that's being used. That we could talk about the mechanics of how the money flows to the metro budget, but that doesn't change the fact that 31 cents of every dollar of increment would otherwise be going to the school system. So we could theoretically eliminate seeing in black and white type the fact that $9.5 million is going from the school system to MNPS. But if we made that more opaque by just having a direct application of the money from property tax revenue straight to MDHA, the effect would still be the same. It's still money coming out of I mean, that's what we all decided, is to have investment in development loans rather than stuff for Metro. And then this is amendable on third reading. I think we can keep talking about it. I would request that my colleagues go ahead and pass this on second reading.
I think it's a good bill. Great job, Councilman at Large. Did you make your motion?
Move to approve as amended with re-referral to Budget and Finance.
Thank you so much. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? You got that, Mike? Okay. Bill is, I forgot what the motion was. Approved as amended and re-referred. Bill 2018-1320, Sponsor Mendez approves an amendment to the Rutledge Hill redevelopment plan. Is there a motion? It's been moved and properly seconded. Councilman Mendez.
As I mentioned with the last bill, on this one, to amend a development plan requires both the approval of MDHA and the council in that order. So we've got this on our docket, past first reading. At this point, it's appropriate to move to defer second reading with referring it to MDHA for consideration. And I guess I'd ask to have it deferred till the first meeting in December to give them time to consider it. I didn't mean to have that sound like a question. That's a statement. I'm sorry.
Yes, I was looking at Mr. Johnson. Okay, there was a motion to defer and then re-refer to MDHA.
Yeah, and the deferrals till the first meeting in December.
First meeting in December. It's been seconded. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Bill is deferred and re-referred to MDHA to the first meeting in December. Before we adjourn, I want to invite everyone on behalf of Vice Mayor-elect Schulman to his swearing-in ceremony at the Farmers Market. Also want to make sure that, you know, as a committee, as a body, that we keep the Carolinas in our prayers and our thoughts as they endure and recover from Hurricane Florence. And with that, we are adjourned.